All right, it's 1:02 on the East Coast. That means it's time to get started with our monthly webinar series brought to you by the Council to Advance Hunting in the Shooting Sports. I'm Marty Hogan hosting this webinar along with the director of Cabela's Outdoor Fund. His name is Scott Wanetka. If you haven't heard of him, you probably want to. He's going to be talking about how he is harboring a culture, R3 culture within Cabela's, and going to go over some of how he did that. So if you don't mind, please ask your questions in the bottom right box, chat box there. We're going to answer the questions after Scott's presentation. Afterwards, we're also going to send out a survey, so be looking for that. We want to get your feedback, make sure everything that we're bringing to you guys is on point and relevant to you. So yeah, without further ado, Scott, you want to take it over?
Yeah, thanks, Marty. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep, sound good.
Okay, good. Thanks to everyone for your time today. Hopefully you can see my screen. So like Marty said, I do like to harvest things too, though, Marty. So you were kind of right in the intro. Scott Wanetka, I work for Cabela's. I've been with the company for 17 years now, and pretty passionate about this topic, and I'm honored to have an opportunity to talk to all of you today. A little bit about my background. I was an alum of the University of Nebraska. Hopefully I don't offend anybody with that. I did study fisheries and wildlife management, got my bachelor's in that, and pursued a career in that field, and took a little different turn after a couple of years and ended up at Cabela's. And after 17 years back kind of working in the same area, which has been a blessing and really cool throughout my career to end up back in kind of this discussion. I held a variety of marketing roles at Cabela's over the years, between the corporate side, sponsorships, and then also on the marketing side of the credit card division. So now my primary role is the Cabela's Outdoor Fund, as well as other efforts to recruit new customers. So the team asked me to visit with all of you about some of the things that we've been doing, and a little bit about our journey at Cabela's. And hopefully this isn't too much of a snooze for you, but it has been good for me to reflect on the journey that we've taken here in our organization, and kind of how we got to where we are. We have a long ways to go, so I am by no stretch an expert on culture or anything like that, but I can insight on our journey, and maybe you can pick up a thing or two regardless of your industry, NGO, or government, state, whatever role you might have. Hopefully you can pick up a nugget or two on things that you might be able to kind of help push along your R3 efforts in your organization. So I will go through a little bit of our journey. There's no right or wrong here. I just wanted to kind of share some of the things that we've done and maybe some things to think about. So as I was thinking about this and kind of where we started is, maybe a question to ask yourself is where is your organization and leadership with R3? And I know that likely everyone on this call is probably passionate about the topic, and your job probably revolves around it. But when you look around you and the folks that support you in your organization, where are they? And we've put a lot of focus as a industry and with this movement around partnerships, and I think oftentimes we look outside for those partnerships, and but maybe take a good hard look inside. Is when you think about your leadership, is this even on the radar? Is this important? Maybe they get the concept of new customers, but maybe they don't call it R3. And I'd say that's probably where we were at the beginning of this. And maybe it's, hey, we often get it, but we have way too many other fires to deal with, and we don't have time for this, which is a whole nother set of challenges. Or are you dialed in and you're chugging on all cylinders and everything's going great. You have ample access to resources and help to move things forward, and that's awesome. But I thought it'd be good to maybe do that gut check kind of going into this. And I'd say coming into the R3 conversation, Cabela's, like I said, was um, really understood as a business, understands and is very passionate about new customers and how we attract new customers and new business. But obviously, we didn't at the time didn't really call it R3 until we had the conversations with John Frampton and Matt Dunphy to really kind of wrap it around that. So, and I think the biggest thing here is just as I look at our journey and really the people in our organization can be your biggest allies to get momentum or your biggest roadblock. So you look around, these folks have budgets, they have resources, and they have influence to help you. And so are they as passionate about R3 as you? So that's just kind of just set the framework here and kind of have you reflect on, where are those opportunities in your organization and where we can maybe focus energy. So first things first, when I think about our journey, it started John and Matt coming to Sydney, Nebraska, and sitting down with our leadership team and really just educating us on R3. And so I know that almost all of you are likely already there. You're part of the R3 community, and so this is probably redundant for you, but that was really part of our journey. But it also kind of forced me to think about, well, how do we get there? And it was having Scott Williams, who's our president, is on the board for the Council to Advance Hunting and Shooting Sports. So he had exposure to it and believed in it. But it took him and a few of us to kind of really get that meeting together with leadership. And the point is really, how can you influence your leadership to take time to talk about this? And it was about new customers for us, and how can we attract new customers, not only for us, but for the industry. And so think about what's your elevator speech, and what is the thing that you're going to use to, when you speak to your coworkers, to leadership in your organization, when you need help, what is the hot button for them? For us, it was new customers. And so that's how we got to that point of having that meeting with John and Matt and how things kind of got started. So, you get the right folks on board. We had in that meeting leadership, and we had a variety of other stakeholders in marketing roles in Sydney, in merchandising roles around the table. And, what really helped us is looking at breaking down the plan is candidly overwhelming, and it's still overwhelming for me at times. And it can be when you just look at that plan in its entirety. But what really helped was Matt and John helped us narrow down and ask questions around, well, what's important to Cabela's, and that can help us understand where you can maybe help. And so part of setting that culture is really understanding the assets that you have at your disposal. We have people, we have 20,000 employees, we have marketing, we have customers, we have marketing assets. And so we started having those conversations around, well, what are the assets we have where we can help? Obviously, writing a check helps everyone. It's more than just writing a check. It's looking deep in your organization at your other resources. It's people, it's your marketing assets, it's things like that. So we came in and had a really good discussion and started talking about things that are important to us, and then wrapping it around that plan. And I'll talk about kind of some of those priority areas here as we get into it. But that was kind of how we help, and I kind of call it the R3 bus, how we get people started, to get on that bus is looking at the benefits to, selfishly your company. Obviously, there's a lot of benefits to the industry, but then how can you help? And this is, I think, a lot about, and I'm sure there might be some R3 coordinators on here and some other folks that may have jobs that are completely dedicated to this. I'm sure sometimes you feel like doing this. And I think about I worry sometimes about R3 coordinators that start without maybe that leadership support, and I'm sure that's sometimes what it feels like. But you just have to, if you don't have that, if you don't have the support internally, you're going to get frustrated. So that's, to me, would be first priority is to get that support internally however you can. You can't do it alone, and there's no way one person in an organization can do it alone. It has to be the whole tribe working towards it. So I thought I'd share an example of what I call a dog and pony show. This was after we had our initial meeting in Sydney with leadership. This was really what we created to educate our board. So this was a presentation that I did for the board of the Cabela's Outdoor Fund. And so this can kind of give you an example of maybe a way to help educate folks in your organization or leadership, in a real brief but hopefully effective conversation. So this was really around at the time, this was before we really got the fishing side integrated heavily into this, but it was more around the Council of Advanced Hunting and Shooting Sports because Scott Williams was is our president and is on that board, so there's a reference there. But I just basically went through the background of what is the council. I'm not going to go through all of this. All of you know this, but I'd be happy to share this with you guys if you want a template to work from. But just basically talked about what is it, and then hit them right away with I call this a variety of things for this audience. I'll call it the oh crap slide. But this hits home when we show this and the trends over the past 20 years of hunting and fishing license sales compared to a percent of population. This is really what wakes people up for us in our organization. And I'd say again, we've known that our customer base is aging, and our customer base is primarily a white male. But when you show it this way, it hits pretty hard. And I've showed this to a variety of people. And so think about those things again. What matters to your organization? What's going to hit a sweet spot for folks? You may be trying to influence people that may not hunt or fish, and candidly may not have the passion about the future of this heritage in some cases. And it's, it's just the way it is sometimes, especially in the roles we're all in. Not everyone is an end user. And so you have to think about what's really going to be a hot button. And I think most of us can agree that, again, for us to be viable as an industry, business, industry, government, or NGO, you need members, you need customers, you need people buying licenses to make your entity viable. So hopefully something like this can trip a trigger. And so and then these stats that we got from Matt helped us put some of this together. You've seen some of this. Is again no surprise, but explain the trends and the reality of what we're dealing with in terms of the population being primarily male and heavily on the middle-aged side. No offense to Craig Boddington, by the way, if anyone knows Craig. I happened to try to find a picture of some middle-aged Caucasian guys, and Craig Boddington popped up. So hopefully any of you Craig Boddington fans aren't offended. And then this is the other point of, hey, just overall, we haven't done a great job of measuring impact. And so this is the other kind of headline that we talked to the board about. And then, hey, how can we help? And so these are the priority areas that I talked about of, hey, this is how can we support programs that tie to R3 in a variety of ways, one being where feasible, the Cabela's Outdoor Fund or any other marketing assets or partnerships that we have within Cabela's. Maybe it's store support, maybe it's people. I don't know what, that can vary. But how can we just make sure that we're locked arms with programs that really tie to R3 and are genuinely trying to make a change and an impact? And how can we use our stores as learning centers? Most of you know that our stores are big attractions for customers from all over the place, and they enjoy their time there. So how can we use that, leverage more as a learning center for R3 programs? We do stuff today. We do seminars We're talking at a deeper level, sorry, level here of uh, ongoing programming that teaches and measures impact. So, how do we create a call of duty to our customers? We have customers that listen to us, and our outfitters, we call our employees outfitters. So we have 20,000 outfitters. So how are we going to rally these groups that can help us in this cause? We need them to understand the message. We need them to help. We're passionate as an organization about mentoring, and that was one of the areas that we wanted to talk about how we could help. So where can we help move that needle forward? And then how can we use customer data to track behavior? So if a new user or a new uh, angler or hunter is attending your programs and they're buying stuff from us, how can we track the effectiveness of that program in getting them to actually buy outdoor gear? So those are things that we've identified. I'd say we have a lot of work again to do in all these buckets, but we've scratched the surface in some, and I'll share some of that with you. So that's kind of a dog and pony show, like I said, example of kind of how we started to educate some folks in our organization, with the outdoor fund being one of the areas that we could help with. Um, we tried to figure out how we could use the outdoor fund to drive some awareness and show the criteria that is tied to R3. So let's see here. This is an example of our website, and we have on the website core activities that we support. Through that, we have hunting and shooting, fishing, and camping buckets. So this kind of shows you how we can actually show examples of that. Here, you can see hands-on training opportunities, self-learning tools, and mentor networks and programs. So this is a way that we're tying some of the criteria around R3, some of the barriers, through examples that we can show people when they apply for funding. These are some of the things that are important to us. We show project examples. So I'm sorry, back on this one. The other reference I make here is we drive them to the Council of Advanced Hunting and Shooting Sports website for more information. So, to the extent that we can drive more people and use your assets to create some awareness, that's what we're trying to do. We have project examples here, so we go to the next level of, hey, here are some examples of projects that are attractive to us. I won't read these verbatim, but you can see them on our website. And then on our application, when you apply for funding, we actually ask, which priority area does your request align with when we outline our priority areas, that I just went through. Who's your target audience, and who, will the project serve? What are the outcomes, expected results, and measurable benefits? What's the project approach, and what's your methods of measurement? Those are things that historically we hadn't asked, and these are things that hopefully all of you, after understanding the R3 plan, can see that these are important. And so we're asking these questions as part of it. And so what's come of that? I'd say it's created more opportunities to educate groups about R3. I wouldn't say we're getting like this huge flurry of programs that tie to R3 coming in, or nor are we seeing a lot, but we're seeing some for sure. But it's more, hey, what is this, and how do I learn more about it? And so you kind of become that, I say, disciple or evangelize R3 through those conversations and point them to the right direction. They know it's important to Cabela's, and I'd say the ship is slowly turning. You're hearing the language more. You're getting more people. I find myself directing more people to poor Cyrus and Sam and Matt and others that probably don't have time to deal with more people, but directing them that way to answer more questions and find out how they can, learn more about R3 and the council. And then just candidly, one of the challenges as I go through this is kind of knowing when to throw the BS flag. So a lot of times we'll see applications in language in there that's really R3 language, but when you peel layers of the onion back, is it really? And are they really measuring out, are they really measuring the right things? And are they really, you know, addressing the barriers that have been outlined in the plan? So I'd say that's part of the journey, just learning more and adjusting and having Sam and Cyrus and Matt on speed dial helps. So those are a few things around the um, outdoor fund that we're doing. Some other assets that we have. This is unique in that the bank where I actually work out of Lincoln, Nebraska, where our bank operations are, and the bank has an endowment with the University of Nebraska, and that endowment is used for experiential learning opportunities for students. And historically, it's been kind of used for research, things like that. And because of the conversations that we're having about R3 just in this building and education, it was an opportunity for us to step back. And this wasn't me, this was leadership in this building saying, hey, maybe we should direct these funds towards recruiting outdoor enthusiasts in R3. Not only the research, the biology piece is important, but now the endowment projects that are coming through and applications are how do we provide more social support for new hunters and anglers, and how do we create, mentor programs, things like that at the university. So that was a cool example of when you start conversations in your organization, the trickle effect that can happen. I would have never thought in a million years that this endowment that the bank had could be used for R3, but it is. So that's a real example of an asset that we had. We also did a survey, and this was again unique to Lincoln. We have about 650 employees here, and we did this outdoor interest survey. And really, the goals here were we have a lot of this is an urban. Granted, Lincoln, Nebraska is not a huge city, but it's an urban area. It's a college town. We have a lot of college kids that work here, and we have a very diverse population. And so we want that connection to the brand, the Cabela's brand. We want to create some fun. We want to drive employee engagement, and then we also want a way to tie in R3. And so what we did is we sent this survey, and I won't go through all the results, but we asked some questions about, okay, where are you today? And by the way, we had about 250 people respond to the survey, which was we were really happy about 40% response. And we were very pleased with the feedback that we got. And so we kind of asked them, where are you? Are you currently participating? Have you tried in the past but stopped? Have you tried in the past but not interested in trying again? Where are you in that continuum? And so some things we learned here were, and specific to shooting and hunting, is hey, there's some people that have tried in the past and stopped for whatever reason. They hit that barrier, but they want to try again. And by the way, there's a bunch of people that have never tried and they're interested in trying. And so we asked why. A lot of the barriers are the same in what you see in the national stuff, time, lack of equipment and money, don't know how to get started, those types of things. So we did ask the why. But this was a good opportunity for us to look at our population and kind of an indirect way to educate them on R3. We asked them if you currently participate, we asked them, are you willing to help teach your fellow employees about these activities? And then we asked them, how do you prefer to teach? And they said, group activities. So that was a big, opportunity for us to say, if we created a mentor program or some sort of educational programs, let's make sure we do it in group activities. The one-on-one stuff might scare them a little bit at first, so let's jump into this real, with maybe pursuing some group activities with the people that can teach. And then we ask the same question of the folks that want to learn, and they've answered the same way. I'd like to learn with a group of my coworkers and friends. And there was a pretty good chunk of them that said, I'd like a mentor to take me out. And so we have this information. We know who these people are. So we will be able to follow up with them and have more conversations as we get into this more. We also ask ask them what, your family and social circle, are they interested in learning? And there's a huge percentage across the board that, yes, I know somebody in my family that would like to learn. And I've had several folks in this building approach me and say, my son wants to learn how to hunt. I don't know where to start. And I think we can all relate to that. And I just think it's a crime that here at Cabela's, we have people not knowing where to start, and that kind of my personal mission to help provide them the resources they need. So that's another question we asked. So some comments that we got were, first of all, the employees were appreciative of being asked, which was cool because that kind of ties into the engagement piece of this. Um, they want and desire events and opportunities to learn. They want to see results from the survey. And one thing that was interesting, and I was glad that people were transparent, is, hey, if we aren't interested, don't alienate me if I'm not interested in these activities. Um, to the point of, I just don't want my employment to be affected by this if I decide not to participate. And that's okay. And I think we need to be okay with that. I think those of us that are passionate about hunting and fishing could take offense to that. And candidly, I felt myself getting there at first, but then I had to step back and say, we asked for their honest feedback, and we have a lot of people in all of our organizations, some more than others. And we know this from the Fish and Wildlife Natural Resources students out there. There's more and more of those folks that don't hunt or fish. So let's not alienate them, but let's figure out how maybe we can engage them as this thing progresses, and they'll come around and maybe they'll be interested as soon as we take away that, the intimidation. So next steps for us, we're working on some different events for our employees, shooting events, fishing events, maybe even like a shoot like a girl, working on maybe getting some of those groups here to help us. Nebraska Game and Parks they're outstanding partners. They're right down the street from us, and Jeff Rollinson and Aaron Hirschberger and Michaela are awesome partners and have helped us develop some ideas. And so they're going to partner with us on lunch and learn opportunities. We're going to talk more to these groups and find out, hey, if you're already participating, how can you help lead a session? Right now, we're just providing resources to employees. So when the Game and Parks is putting together programs, we're passing that on. If they're doing workshops, things, just simple stuff. But again, some people don't know where to start. So just if you can be a conduit of information, that helps. So what happens with all of this is, as you do more of this, leadership starts seeing the impact on employee engagement. They start seeing the impact on the tie back to the brand. And may not have called it R3 before, but that is an opportunity for, just candidly, us to get leverage, all of us, on the R3 movement and help drive funding, resources, that type of thing towards these programs. So the goal, hopefully, if this thing's successful, is, expand to other locations. So right now it's just this little conversation here in Lincoln, Nebraska, but someday I'd love to see it be very successful and expand. So what's happening, again, and we haven't really gotten super deep into it, but again, what's happened organically is we have our employees volunteering to participate in activities that the Game and Parks has, workshops. This picture over here, excuse my mouse, but I'm going to show you. This picture here are three gentlemen that work here in the bank. And this gentleman's name is Lander, and he is from Brazil. And he moved here a number of years ago with his family. He has two boys. And he came into this organization and said, same thing, where do I start? I'm interested. I think the things that you guys do here are cool. I don't know where to start. And the culture of hunting in Brazil is way different than the culture of hunting in the United States. And so he had some preconceived ideas of what that looked like, but he was willing to learn. And so because of these efforts, we have a small group of employees here, there's about 20 of us, that got certified to be hunter ed instructors through some of these discussions. And now we're teaching our employees about hunter ed. And so the great thing is, it was an easy conversation because Lander wanted to learn. Brad, who's his boss, said, you need to start and maybe go to a hunter ed class with your sons. And we took away that barrier of intimidation because he walked him down the hall to me. I showed them where to go to sign up, and I taught the class. And so with some other employees. So it wasn't this overwhelming thing. It was easy. We took away some of those barriers. And so that's what excites me is just some of that stuff is happening. We have groups, employees that are doing team building activities like at the game of parks. They went down and planted trees, but then they also taught employees that have never shot, how to shoot bows and things like that. So they aren't exactly multi-step programs. They aren't measured to the degree we want them to, but it's a start. And I'm hoping someday we have legitimate little like mini R3 programs in our four walls. In Sydney, they started a mentor program. So there's the Sydney corporate headquarters has access to a lease about an hour away from the Sydney, and they're using that lease. That's an asset that Cabela's has. They have this lease to do mentor programs. So they're actually asking employees that have never shot a turkey or been turkey hunting to enter into a lottery, and their names are picked, and they're matched with mentors that are experts that will take them out. And so they do that with deer and turkey. Another way to educate employees is called the Hook, Line, and Sinker, and this is like an internal publication that we send out quarterly, and it's kind of a grip and grin deal where people can show off their trophies and employees. So it's pretty cool anyway. But we asked the question, can we use the Hook, Line, and Sinker, which is a communication asset and a marketing asset to our employees, to talk about R3? So forgive me for a second, and I'm going to show you, just scroll through this, but this is the Hook, Line, and Sinker Mentor Edition. And so we put mentoring on a pedestal. And what it allowed me to do, I won't bore you with all the article here, but it allowed for us to talk about why the future of hunting and fishing depends on us. So I was able to explain why mentoring is important. And I was able to explain the North American model of conservation. And I was able to explain why it matters to us, and why they should care, because we need new customers. And what can you do as an employee? So, think about success differently. Instead of, going after the trophy, measure success in how many new people you can take out to learn about hunting, fishing, shooting. So those types of things are opportunities for us to educate. So I'd say any internal communication methods you have, use those assets. And so we have some great stories here on people that are first timers, that whoever it was in their life decided to take them out. And we've had some really cool examples of employees creating, sorry about my jumping around here, work groups and things like that to take them out. So that is an example of how you can maybe leverage an internal asset to do that. So mentoring, and we mentioned this is one of the areas that we identified. So we are supporting different mentor programs and mentor efforts out there. Some of you are benefactors of that. We are passionate about the topic and want to support in any way we can legitimate and productive mentor programs. This past summer, we co-hosted a Mentor Alliance Summit here in Lincoln. It is a group of different mentoring programs around the United States. So again, we just wherever we can help support that effort as a brand is what we want to do. And another thing I'd mentioned earlier is customers. So Cabela's does customer research, and we asked our research team, because we told them the story about the importance of new customers in R3, if we can incorporate some questions about R3 in our focus groups. And so this was actually a focus group in Pennsylvania that we did. And we incorporated some questions about R3 in there. And I'm not going to go into all the details. Candidly, it's a lot of the information that is already published in terms of what they said. The one aha, and one of the reasons we did this is because I'm part of the R3 Task Force in Nebraska, and as a team, we wanted to understand what is the level of understanding our customers really have on this topic, and so that's what we asked. And no surprise, there's very little understanding. I'd say in most of these focus groups, there's a hunch that numbers are declining, but it wasn't. It was um, not as much as you would hope, and really the understanding of the North America model really not there. And so I think what it really showed us is why we really have to take a step back, and as we as we as Jeff Rawlinson would say, activate the Orange Army, Nebraska hunters, we really have to explain the why behind this. And so that was helpful, but that is an asset again that Cabela's had. We had that going on. We could maybe help with this effort through some of those questions. And so, I remember in this one, again, like I said, there was a hunch, but I can't remember if it was this guy or who it was said, but Pennsylvania had a record number of deer harvested last year. And I think some of you maybe seen Delta publish some information out there, and they had a number of hunters, kind of pushing back and saying, well, there's a record number of waterfowl. There's, all my hunting spots are full. How could hunter numbers be down? And so there's still a little bit of that denial out there that we all have work to do on. So I would say back to kind of the 5 areas we identified. The areas we still have work to do is the call of duty and communication to our customers. The leveraging data piece is very complex and with a lot of work to do there. And then using our stores as learning centers. I'd say we scratched the surface there with some groups, but we're trying to get more of those programs and partnerships going. And that's tough when you're dealing with retail and in getting into those relationships and dealing with turnover and things like that. It's easier said than done, but that's something that we want to continue doing. So that that is about all I have, and I like to end my presentations on R3 by embarrassing a special friend of mine because he's the one that really, um, in addition to Scott Williams being on the board, I understood that the council was important to Cabela's and R3 was important to Cabela's, but it was Jeff that really kind of lit the spark in me and took it to the next level, introducing me to Matt and learning more about it. And this guy, if you've never met Jeff, most of you probably know him. He's extremely passionate, and I always love this quote because he is not shy about saying it. And so, in the words of Jeff Rawlinson, and I always like to embarrass him because if you Google Jeff Rawlinson, this comes up literally. So, if any of you want any dirt on him, you can have at this picture. I'd be happy to share it. So that is all I have for today, and I got to figure out how to use. I'm not going to share my screen anymore, Marty.
So thank you, Scott, for
Okay. Any questions?
Okay, Scott. Thank you for that great presentation. Just so you're aware and everyone on the line, there was a little bit of a lag there. We'll be working with Scott to bring up any of those really key points to make sure you guys can all hear it and see it. And we'll have the recording of this available next week as well, so you can catch up on it too. And Scott, it came across, most of your points come across loud and clear. We have a couple questions in there, and I know how much time and effort you've put into this kind of presentation and in general and working and addressing R3 with Cabela's as a company, but also for the future of hunting and target shooting too, and for angling and boating. So we have a couple questions that have been rolling in. One of the first ones here is regarding the Cabela's Outdoor Fund Awards. Would you be able to share the success or failures from those projects?
Okay.
And for example, if someone develops a great self-learning tool or a mentoring network, will other entities be able to use that resource? And that's coming to us from Chris McCarthy in Massachusetts.
Yeah, I would hope so. And I guess I would hope that those entities will be, I don't know that it's my place to share that, but I would hope that those entities would, and I would encourage them to. As we get into this, and I think most of the folks that we've worked with on our three related programs are very engaged in this community and be happy to share that. And I think that's a great call out, and it's something for me to be thinking about as I'm having interactions with these folks.
Fantastic. And we can work with that, with you on that, Scott, as well. Um, Now, I know we have a couple other industry representatives on the webinar with us today, and maybe this question hits home with them too. Eddie Herndon, the new Virginia R3 coordinator, is asking, what is the best way to engage with Cabela's in our state in order to form partnerships? Is it through local store contacts or through corporate? And just to add on to that, can you just explain kind of some tactics or strategies that have worked well for you connecting different states with local Cabela's, or what's just the best way for these people to go about that?
Yeah, and I know that one, like I mentioned earlier, is easier said than done with almost 100 stores and a bunch of employees coming and going at times in the retail environment. I'd say just candidly, the biggest challenge there is, as many of you can appreciate, is getting a relationship established. I would encourage anyone that wants to partner with the store to not go to corporate because you'll get frustrated. I would do your best to connect with that store and start with I think almost every store has a retail marketing manager or a retail marketing specialist. And their job is to um, foster partnerships in that market. And that's where I would start. So if you do a cold call to the store or stop by, ask for that role, marketing manager, marketing specialist. If they don't have somebody in role, I would ask for the general manager. If you can get some time with the general manager, they would be able to um, help you out. So that's where I would start. Um, and I'm happy to. I've done it for several folks. Yes, if you're kind of hitting a brick wall and you want to have at least a conversation, and you're not getting anyone to be able to visit with, just reach out to me. I'm happy to help where I can. There's like divisional marketing folks that um, I can connect with and stuff too. So that's my advice is just make a relationship with that marketing manager at the store.
Awesome, good advice.
And I guess the other thing I would say is these guys get pounded daily by people that want money and donations, which I understand that's part of the game. And I understand we're happy to support groups where we can, but just know that there's way more demand than what they can fulfill. So I would encourage you to not necessarily come with your hand out, but more of a conversation how you guys can help each other. And maybe there's a benefit with that monetary if they can support you, but that's my only other bit of
How about
advice.
timing, Scott? Just add on to that. I know a lot of people, the R3 coordinators sitting on staff right now, are looking and posting events and things and trying to engage industry folks, but a lot of your employees too. Is there a certain time as the retail sector goes that would be better or worse to engage people?
Yeah, don't Q4 is bad. So fourth quarter, I would not encourage you to if you can help it. I know that's obviously hunting season too, but in retail world, that's when you make hay. And so I would encourage you to avoid that time frame. But yeah, outside of that, I mean, that's a good question. But at at the same time, business can't stop. The world can't stop turning in Q4. So I mean, I would just maybe be understanding if you are trying to reach out in Q4 if you don't get a response or not timely. Hopefully you understand there's just a
And
ton of
Q4 is
activity
like
going on there in the
October,
retail
November,
world.
December, right? During the holidays and hunting season and everything. And partner.
Mm-hmm.
We had a great question.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah,
try to
try to him
six
before that.
Q2 and Q3. Maybe. We had a great question from Marty. He said you said that your focus group participants in Pennsylvania had a hunch of hunter decline. What about your internal employees? Was it more than a hunch or the same? Did they know the data before you shared it to them?
No, I would say in general, it's gonna be same until you have a concerted discussion with them. Yeah, I have not. I'd say maybe depending on the group. That's kind of a loaded question because it depends on the group. Marketing folks are going to be a little bit more in tune with the average age of our customer and the trends, so they're going to know a little bit more than others. I'd say the average employee probably, I'd say, is going to be more like our
Okay.
customer.
That's awesome. And you gave some great strategies and tactics early on about the messaging and enrolling with leadership and all those lessons you learned. Maybe one of the other ways Gabriella's question might play into that, and it's how about working with influencers to get R3 out there to the vast swaths of people? Is Cabela's planning to employ this tactic more? So I think she's talking about engaging the Orange Army, as Jeff Rollinson had mentioned it. Are you looking at influencers, or have you guys considered any strategies?
Mhm. Yeah, that's a great question. We've just started engaging our influencers and ambassadors with some different opportunities. So one, not I guess more specific on the fishing side is our BFF has a family friendly fishing guide type of I don't know, I'm going to butcher the name of it, but they have a program where if you're interested in fishing, that they have this resource for people to learn more about it and opportunities to catch fish. So we leveraged our ambassadors and pro staff to chime in for that. So I'd say as we have more specific things that we can ask them to do, we will do that. We have started sharing with them where we are on the outdoor fund side, the groups that are getting support from the outdoor fund, so they can reinforce some of that. But I think that's a great call out, and even more of a kind of like the dog and pony that we did for employees here. I think that's a great call out that we should do that for influencers and pro staff. We haven't gotten to that level yet. We've asked them when something specific comes up.
Okay. And
Great idea.
Catherine Boswell, I believe she's from Wyoming, asked,
I see a question on that where Cabela.
"You there?
Yeah.
Okay, so were the Cabellides, were the Cabellides, were the Cabela's
Yeah, I think I got the quote. Where the Cabela. Yeah, I got the question, Sam. Sorry about. Yeah, I'm experiencing that delay. Geez, you guys have been probably extremely annoyed throughout this whole thing. Um, I got the question, were the Cabela's employees incentivized to mentor folks? The answer is no. They were given the opportunity to hunt on this ground. I actually believe the mentors actually didn't hunt. So these are just people that are passionate about helping out and
That's
enjoyed
awesome.
it.
Um, Scott, you shared some great resources. Would it be okay to share your PowerPoint on the R3 community just so people could go through it as well? We can provide some of those resources afterwards when we provide the webinar too. But it looks like that's all the questions we have right now. Can you just give us some parting thoughts
Yeah.
for the R3 coordinators sitting there, whether it be Erin sitting in Kansas that I see there, Megan in Iowa? What's your best tip for them as they're looking forward to working on R3 in the coming months?
My best, I guess, it's really hard for me to tell an I guess what to do because I'm not sitting in their seat. But I would just say the biggest thing on my mind when I look at that role and I look at the evolution and where it is, I have a ton of respect for our three coordinators, and they have a huge job. And I just sometimes wonder if they get the support that they need and within their agencies, or I guess the area that they're working in. And so I would just say if you kind of do that gut check and you don't feel like the agency that you're working with is really um, ingrained in the R3 movement and really not acting on it and actually making changes, that you think about a conversation, tactical and effective conversation with your leadership. Obviously, without burning bridges, but I mean that's to me what really I just worry about that spinning wheels deal. So I'd say just don't be afraid to have those tough discussions if you feel like you need a little bit more support within your agency.
It's really good
So
advice. Um, Thank you, Scott, for your time. It's really nice to know and really helpful to know that you're there, pushing the same kind of ideas and concepts through your organization, through the firearms and hunting industries, and for all of the R3 coordinators in the country to be able to relate to you and see that you have the same message going forward. So your advice is pretty spot on, I think, and I think it's much appreciated to have you be able to get on and share some of your insights with us. Thank you for your time, and thank you everyone for joining us today. As I said, we will have a webinar recording of this up at the end of the week next week. If there is delays in audio and issues with that, we will address it. I do apologize there. We will be looking into a new platform if necessary to address those and make sure you guys keep having the best experience on this website. So there is a link that Marty shared on that chat box if you'd like to complete it. I'll send you all an email as a follow-up as well too. And if you have any further questions or concerns or anything, please feel free to reach out to me at Samantha@cahss.org or Marty@powderhook.org. All right. Thank you all. And Scott, thank you again for your time. It is really appreciated. We appreciate your message.
thank you.